Winona Ryder was a California hippie girl who became an icon for Generation X. With a talent for playing oddballs and outcasts, she was the perfect Hollywood starlet for the alternative culture of the 1990s. But behind the misfit persona was a troubled young woman.
She was riding high, but at the same time, it exposed them more to her insecurities, and those insecurities fed into her mental health issues.
Arrested for shoplifting in Beverly Hills, Winona's life begins to crumble.
A celebrity shoplifting is kind of weird. I mean, they have lots of money, they have lots of opportunity to wear designer clothes. Why are you stealing clothes from a department store? That's odd. The pills are par for the course in the celebrity lifestyle.
Not only was her entire career on the line, to make matters worse, the trial was a media circus. There were more than 40 journalists in the courtroom every day.
And soon, Winona Ryder is in need of some serious damage control.
Crazy doesn't bode well for women in Hollywood. It's just not the best image for them. So in retrospect, her coming out about her mental issues did her no favors.
To a celebrity, image is everything. But when that image is destroyed, can it be rebuilt? You be the judge. Celebrity damage control. In the late 1980s, a teenage girl arrives in Hollywood with dreams of movie stardom. It doesn't take Winona Ryder long to become a sensation, capitalizing on her knack for playing a kooky, edgy version of the proverbial girl next door.
For this kid that is not your typical Hollywood beauty, I mean, she was pretty, but not Hollywood pretty. She worked with some of the biggest names in Hollywood, and she was working absolutely nonstop. She was a commodity.
As a poster child for Generation X, Winona is more than just a movie star. She's an icon. While her romances with Hollywood hunks and rockers establish her reputation as Tinseltown's latest it girl.
I feel like I've been really blessed with great material and really, really great directors and groups of people to work with, and I just hope that I can keep going in that direction.
But when an arrest for shoplifting exposes a possible affinity for prescription pills and a history of mental illness, the polished image of the star begins to lose its shine, and the future of one of Hollywood's brightest lights no longer seems as certain.
She was primed to be the next great female actor, the next Meryl Streep even. And then it all disappeared, and so did she.
October 29, 1971. Winona Laura Horowitz is born in and named after the small city of Winona, Minnesota. Her parents, Michael and Cynthia, are authors and scholars. Winona joins 2 children from Cynthia's first marriage. Winona's godfather, LSD guru and counterculture hero Timothy Leary.
Timothy Leary was an academic college professor who was involved with the experimentation of LSD in order to get patients to deal with repressed memories, to talk about their depression, anxiety, and so on. And he became a figure, a moving figure in the drug culture of young people. His very famous saying was, "Turn on, tune in, and drop out."
Soon after Winona's arrival, the family heads southwest, moving to San Francisco, California. Only a few years after the Summer of Love, San Francisco is still a mecca for hippies, outsiders, and other free spirits. There, the family befriends more 60s counterculture heroes, including poets Allen Ginsberg and Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Seekers and travelers, Winona and family relocate once again, this time to Colombia in South America. Camping in the jungle, the family lives with Chilean revolutionaries.
Certainly that's a very nomadic, bohemian sort of existence. It could be very exciting for a family, for the children involved, but at the same time, it can also be somewhat problematic for a child, especially one like Winona Ryder, a very sensitive individual who's not able to lay down roots, who's not able to find stability.
After returning from Colombia, the family settles briefly again in San Francisco before moving to a 300-acre community farm in Mendocino County when Winona is 7. At the farm, called Rainbow, they live with 7 other families with no electricity and no running water. In 1982, the family leaves Mendocino County for suburban Petaluma, California. For young Winona, raised to believe it's okay to be different, it's a difficult transition.
We know that the children of hippies, many of them were very happy. The problem is that once they're integrated into more of a mainstream society, they don't fit in or feel that they can't make that transition into that more regimented lifestyle that we see most children have.
Arriving at junior high with a crew cut and wearing a man's suit she found at a thrift shop, Winona is beaten up by bullies who take issue with her unusual look.
For her, that must have been devastating that people, that Neanderthals, were surrounding her in that way and snuffing out the freedom that she had learned to embrace as a child.
Labeled a distraction to the other students, Winona is kicked out of school. It's then that her parents make a decision that will change her life forever.
They enrolled her in classes in San Francisco's prestigious American Conservatory Theater, and that's where she discovered her love of acting and of performing.
At just 12 years of age, Winona almost drowns in a freak accident. It's a trauma that will haunt her for the rest of her life as she develops a fear of deep water and begins experiencing anxiety.
What we often see with phobias, a person becomes so incapacitated, they become so fearful, so anxious, so embarrassed in front of others that they can't function. The quality of their lives suffers so much that they then develop other mental illnesses, specifically a depression.
After 2 years of studying theater, Winona tries out for her first film role. She auditions with a monologue taken from a novel by one of her favorite authors, J.D. Salinger. Though she fails to land the role, her audition tape is circulated throughout Hollywood by casting agents impressed with her performance.
Eventually, the tape lands on the desk of a director who's looking for an actress with a bit of edge. Winona is perfect.
Asked to screen test for a role in the football comedy Lucas, Winona performs opposite teen megastar River Phoenix and blows producers away.
When you're looking down the road for somebody like this, the whole world can open up to them. They can go in so many different directions because she had the talent. She could play dark and she could play light and she could play in the middle and she could be smart and she could be beautiful and she could be vulnerable. She had it all.
Starring in the picture opposite teen heartthrob Corey Haim and a young Charlie Sheen, critics peg Winona as the true standout of the film. When it comes time to pick a screen name for the credits, Winona Horowitz chooses to borrow the surname of 60s rocker Mitch Ryder. Using the raves for her performance in Lucas as a springboard, Winona lands her next role in the Golden Globe-nominated drama Square Dance. Again, she wins praise, even as she shares the screen with Hollywood heavyweights Rob Lowe and Jason Robards. But it's with her third film that Winona finds true fame. Producer-director Tim Burton is looking for a young actress who can play a mopey, cynical teen while still charming audiences with her spunk and spirit. He finds her in Winona Ryder. Cast to star as snarky goth teenager Lydia in the supernatural comedy Beetlejuice, Winona creates a character almost as memorable as the wildly inappropriate ghost, played by Michael Keaton.
In an interview, when asked why she decided to portray this character in this particular way as a goth person, she discussed a girl in her school, the school that she had gone to, who was goth, and everybody just tortured her to the point of suicide. And then these same haters showed up at the funeral talking about what a wonderful girl she was and what good friends they were. So she saw the hypocrisy in this, and I think she did this as a tribute to that girl.
The young actress outshines her more famous co-stars, Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin.
Beetlejuice was Ryder's first significant role, and this is what got her the big following. Beetlejuice was a quirky film. This brought a cute girl next door who could have a dark side, and it started an entirely new trend.
What happens, though, is as you play these outsider roles, as Winona did, everyone begins to see you as an outsider. And if you're an outsider, then some people may see you as a hero or heroine, but others tend to see you as being someone who doesn't really belong.
With her biggest role still ahead of her, Winona's stardom will reach unimagined heights. But once again, the outcast who was bullied in school will have a hard time fitting in, while the pressures of fame will mount until they threaten to destroy her entire career. Winona Ryder has exploded onto the Hollywood scene. Only 15 years old and with 3 movies under her belt, she's already one of Tinseltown's hottest starlets. In 1987, Winona auditions for the role that will come to define her on-screen persona.
Of all the comedies in Hollywood made about teenagers in the 80s, none were more provocative, more shocking, or more dark than Heathers.
Desperate to be cast as a disaffected teenager who falls in love with a psychopathic classmate, Winona begs screenwriter Daniel Waters for the role, even as other actresses turned down the part due to the film's violent subject matter.
When Winona went out for Heathers, nobody really wanted her to do this, but she was determined to get it, and she was actually turned down for the role because she wasn't pretty enough. She went out and got a complete makeover, had her hair done, her makeup done, the entire thing, came back and went out for the role again and actually got it. This was not something to enhance her image. It was a story that she wanted to tell because she really believed in it, and she saw the damage that girls like this can do firsthand.
Upon being hired, Winona immerses herself in the role of a sympathetic murderer.
Even though Heathers was not a huge box office hit, it did develop a cult following, and it solidified her as an outsider, and a lot of kids can identify with that. So she became their role model, and she was part of the Brat Pack, so she was the one in the Brat Pack that they could identify with.
Despite her success, behind the scenes, Winona struggles to control her anxiety. At night, unable to sleep, she often drives alone around Los Angeles, attempting to calm her nerves. Following Heathers with the more mainstream Jerry Lee Lewis biopic Great Balls of Fire, the Los Angeles Times anoints Winona heiress apparent to Molly Ringwald's teen throne. Though the film is only a minor hit, it's what happens at the film's premiere that sends her off in a romantic new direction.
On the red carpet, Winona first meets Johnny Depp, who would become her first true love.
The dreamy star of television's hit show 21 Jump Street, Depp is 26, while Winona is just 17. When the pair meet up again just a few short months after their first encounter, they immediately strike up a sizzling relationship, much to the delight of the supermarket tabloids.
For a while, this was the Hollywood it couple. They were darling together, but her age and his past just fueled the fires of the tabloids.
In California, in the 80s, a 17-year-old having sex with a 26-year-old is a felony. The age of majority, the age of consent in California has been 18 since the 1920s, and they have an extra special little provision that makes it a more serious crime if there's more than 3 years age difference between the two people. So it actually has potential to be a fairly serious crime.
5 months after their relationship begins, and just weeks after Winona turns 18, Johnny proposes, and Winona says yes.
So even though Johnny Depp was engaged twice before and dumped these young women, she may have done what many people do, feeling that she was special, that she could tame him, that she could be that special person, that she could be that soulmate, that this time it would be different. Not.
For her next project, Winona hopes to collaborate with her 2 favorite men, Depp and Beetlejuice director Tim Burton. Cast as a love interest in Burton's romantic fantasy Edward Scissorhands, Winona encourages Depp to audition for the lead role. Even as Burton considers such top stars as Robert Downey Jr., Tom Cruise, and even Michael Jackson for the part. Despite being an unlikely choice for the role, Burton hires Depp to play the sensitive monster who learns about love when he falls for Winona. When Edward Scissorhands is released in December of 1990, it proves to be a big hit for both Winona and Johnny, as well as Tim Burton. Critics gush that the couple's on-screen chemistry makes the film's tender love story come alive.
It's such a beautiful, quirky film, and that's what audiences fell in love with. Not just their chemistry and the characters they were playing, but the real-life couple as well.
But when Winona attempts to capitalize on her success by taking a major role in director Francis Ford Coppola's mob epic, The Godfather 3, the pressures of fame once again take their toll on the young star. After traveling to Rome for the shoot, Winona finds herself suddenly unable to perform. Although there are conflicting stories as to the nature of her issues, tabloid reports of an emotional breakdown are the first hint to the public of Winona's on-again, off-again battles with depression and anxiety. While Winona says she was simply sick and had been ordered by a doctor to return home to recover.
The fear that an actor or their team has if you come up and say that you are depressed, you're suffering from depression and you're having some anxiety issues, the fear is, one, that a movie won't hire you because you're unstable, or two, that a movie won't hire you because they can't get insured because you're unstable. So you try to cover that up as much as possible, plus you don't want the image of being unstable and erratic out in the public. Since her breakdown in early 20s, Winona has come forward and acknowledged this, but at the time it was kind of a media disaster because her team had conflicting stories. There was gastric infection, there was exhaustion, there were like 3 or 4 different stories going on, which made it all sound less credible because they just couldn't keep their story straight.
As her PR team does a messy job of damage control, Winona is forced to drop out of the picture to focus on recovery, with Depp by her side. Somewhat infamously, director Coppola replaces Winona in the role with his own daughter, Sophia.
This turned out to be a bad move because even though Godfather 3 was highly anticipated, it was a bomb, and many critics blamed Sophia's performance for that.
Months later, now healthy and refreshed, Winona does an interview with Rolling Stone, cementing her status as a true star and icon.
In her interview with Rolling Stone, she discusses how she felt like a media target and everybody was just waiting for her to really mess up. And that goes with somebody that has had the kind of meteoric rise that she has had. It makes you feel very, very vulnerable because it is the human nature to want to see somebody at the top fall. It's the ugly side of human nature, but it is there.
Eager to return to the screen in a role that shows off her talents, Winona stars with Hollywood legend Cher in the family drama Mermaids. Once again, critics praise her performance. She even receives her first major award nomination, a nod from the Hollywood Foreign Press, nominating Winona for a Golden Globe Award for Best Supporting Actress.
Winning the Golden Globe Award is kind of Hollywood's nod and their way to protect their own, and Winona was always one of their favorites. She is a Hollywood favorite, so they wanted to let people know that they were going to protect her, and she was one of them.
Proving that filmmakers are still eager to work with Winona, despite the Godfather 3 fiasco, art film director Jim Jarmusch writes a major role in his next picture, Night on Earth, just for her.
Winona's independent streak became her brand. She was admired for her strength and her composure, especially for someone that young.
Winona spends the early 1990s alternating between small independent films and big-budget blockbusters, in demand by some of Tinseltown's most renowned and legendary directors. But Hollywood's adoration can't fix Winona's broken heart when she and Johnny Depp split following their 4-year love affair.
Johnny had his Winona Forever tattoo changed to Wino Forever, so that fixes that.
It is quite surprising that she was so young for them to be engaged, and he was relatively young for them to stay together for 4 years. So there really was something there. She did see that there was a very special relationship, and he saw that too. But eventually they said they broke up, it was mutual, and they can go their own separate ways. And in many ways, that is a very, very healthy thing.
When she discussed her breakup with Johnny Depp, she did talk about having been lost, but this girl had been working absolutely nonstop. She was exhausted and she was struggling with her identity as any 19-year-old would be. She didn't recognize the depression that was going on in her life. She just thought she was sad over the breakup.
The fact is that Winona Ryder was doing well in Hollywood. She had a good heart, she was a good person, but she had a lot of emotional issues, demons that she had not dealt with, and they were soon to surface through her behaviors.
Winona Ryder's shooting star is about to fall, and all the damage control in the world might not be enough to repair her shattered reputation. Barely out of her teens, Winona Ryder is one of Hollywood's hottest stars, but her breakup with actor Johnny Depp is the first push down a dark path that will soon put her in need of huge damage control. Left reeling by the end of her 4-year relationship with Depp, Winona is nonetheless at the peak of her career, riding high off an Oscar nomination and a Golden Globe win for her performance in Martin Scorsese's epic period drama, The Age of Innocence.
As someone who was already struggling with the demands of fame, this was a really difficult period for her, even though professionally she was on her game.
She had a lot of emotional issues she was dealing with. And then to win a Golden Globe and get nominations for other awards, this put her in a very tenuous position because now she was riding high, but at the same time, it exposed her more to her insecurities, and those insecurities fed into her mental health issues.
Winona's sensitivity comes through again when she hears news reports of the kidnapping of a 12-year-old California girl named Polly Klaas. She's inspired to use her fame to turn attention to the case. In a desperate effort to help police locate Klaas, Winona offers a cash reward of $200,000 of her own money for Klaas's safe return.
There are a lot of similarities. Polly Klaas was 12 years old when she was kidnapped from Petaluma. Winona Ryder was 12 years old when she almost drowned in the water in Petaluma. So in some ways, by offering this huge reward that Winona did, this was her way of not only paying tribute and trying to help this young girl, but also going back in time and acknowledging the pain that Winona had and was finally addressing it.
Tragically, on December 4th, 1993, a rancher named Richard Allen Davis confesses to murdering Polly Klaas and leads investigators to her body.
Polly Klaas came from her hometown and she felt very affected by this. She did not do this for the publicity. In fact, she quietly has been working with him ever since. Polly Klaas's dad speaks very highly of Winona because she gets out in the trenches. She will answer phones. She will do whatever it takes. She feels very, very strongly about that.
Moved by the tragedy, Winona spearheads an effort in Hollywood to adapt the little girl's favorite book, Louisa May Alcott's classic Little Women, for the big screen.
The film was dedicated to Polly Klaas, which was a very touching tribute for Winona, because even though she didn't know her, her tragedy touched her very deeply.
Teaming once again with Heathers and Edward Scissorhands producer Denise Denovi, Winona takes a starring role in the film. Together, they assemble a star-studded cast that includes Susan Sarandon, Christian Bale, Kirsten Dunst, and Claire Danes. In 1993, having recovered from the heartbreak of her ended relationship with Johnny Depp, Winona begins dating rock star Dave Pirner, lead singer of the band Soul Asylum. Then, the following year, she stars in Ben Stiller's Generation X romantic comedy, Reality Bites.
Winona Ryder was the poster child for Gen X. Movies from that era were all about disillusioned young people, and from Heathers to Reality Bites, she was the face of that.
Once again, when Oscar season approaches, Winona is recognized, this time with a Best Actress nomination for her performance in Little Women. Despite her mainstream success and iconic status, over the next few years, Winona shies away from big-budget Hollywood fare. Instead, she chooses to focus on smaller, independent films, such as How to Make an American Quilt and The Crucible with Daniel Day-Lewis. In 1996, however, she agrees to star in a new blockbuster, a sequel to the science fiction classic Alien. Starring alongside Sigourney Weaver in the film, Alien Resurrection calls for Winona to perform numerous scenes deep underwater.
Let's be honest, she could have said, look, send in a stunt double. I'm not doing this. She had the star power, but she saw this as an opportunity to actually put up or shut up when it came to this phobia and conquer it once and for all.
The role is physically and mentally challenging, with disappointing results. Though Winona pulls off the role and survives the shoot, the film proves a flop at the box office. In response to the negative reaction to her return to mainstream films, Winona steps away from the spotlight for the next 2 years. On hiatus from acting, Winona tells the press she's just not interested in any of the scripts coming her way. Romantically, Winona continues her search for true love. Having parted ways with Dave Pirner, she next falls for a young, up-and-coming actor named Matt Damon.
Audiences had just fallen in love with him because of Good Will Hunting, so he was Hollywood's it guy. He was Hollywood's new golden boy. So even though Winona wasn't doing movies, she was still very much in the Hollywood scene and still very relevant because she was dating him.
But at the time, Damon is dating Minnie Driver.
Matt Damon was doing an interview on Oprah Winfrey Show, and he said he was not in a relationship, so he dumped Minnie Driver on the Oprah Show. Minnie Driver came as a complete devastating shock to her because she thought they were on their way to the altar. And then he and Winona became the new it couple.
In 1998, after a 2-year absence from the silver screen, Winona returns to acting with a starring role in the Woody Allen comedy Celebrity, a satire of the craziness of Hollywood.
When Winona decided to do Woody Allen's film, this was just another in a series of bad choices on different roles that she had been accepting. And she wanted to do this because she was known as going from a mainstream film to an indie film, and it was all very well done, and she would go back into mainstream, and she thought this was Woody Allen. She was in good company because it had an incredible cast, but it was shot in black and white. It wasn't his best, and it just didn't do well.
That same year, she also serves as a member of the jury at the prestigious Cannes Film Festival. Still compelled to tell stories that are meaningful to her, Winona begins pushing hard for another big screen adaptation of a book she holds dear, Susanna Kayson's coming-of-age novel, Girl Interrupted. The story of a young woman with emotional and mental issues. The book was first given to Winona by her father as she was coming out of her own depression in her early 20s.
I believe being in this movie, Girl Interrupted, was a catharsis. As again, we see with so many of our actors and actresses and musicians, they are attracted to the roles, to the music that is a reflection of what they've gone through.
Eventually signing on to not only star, but also executive produce the film, Girl Interrupted is a true passion project for Winona. So much so that to promote it upon its release, Winona agrees to discuss, for the first time, her own struggles with depression and anxiety.
I kind of feel like I've been researching this role my whole life, you know? We all have our highs and lows, and certainly Susanna's highs and lows are exceptionally interesting, much more interesting than my own. And I think I just sort of fell into it very easily.
She does this interview on 2020 where she completely opens up about her struggles. She's very candid, and it's a side of her that people haven't seen before.
In Winona's case, this revelation did damage her reputation a little bit because people had known her as an actor playing quirky and dark, and that was tarnished, and they started thinking of her as a crazy person who was quirky and dark.
Though Girl Interrupted proves to be successful and critics praise Winona's performance, the film's true standout and only Oscar nominee is Angelina Jolie. Despite the praise for the film, Winona's career continues its downward trajectory. Though she receives a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and makes a guest appearance on TV's Friends, over the next 2 years, Winona fails to have a big screen hit. She appears in only 2 films, Lost Souls and Autumn in New York, both of which receive limited release and terrible reviews.
It's not a great time for Winona. The media is starting to make fun of her. Needless to say, she's no longer Hollywood's it girl.
She had been dangerously overexposed. Hollywood will burn out a brand if you let them.
Winona's popularity is on the wane, and it will take a shocking arrest to catapult her back into the spotlight. With a scandal so outrageous, it could ruin her name. Winona Ryder's career has hit a serious rough patch. In a 1999 candid interview on 2020, Winona reveals her personal demons and battles with depression and anxiety over the years.
There I was, you know, in so much pain and feeling so confused, feeling so lost in my life.
But her revelation isn't cathartic. Instead, it seems to increase her insecurities and negativity in the press. On the afternoon of Wednesday, December 12, 2001, Winona Ryder is shopping at the Saks Fifth Avenue department store in Beverly Hills when she is stopped by security guards as she exits. She is immediately placed under arrest for allegedly shoplifting almost $5,000 worth of designer clothes from the store, Once under custody, police find a stash of pharmaceutical drugs in her purse, for which she has no prescription. After being held for a number of hours, she's released later in the evening on $20,000 bail.
A celebrity shoplifting is kind of weird. I mean, they have lots of money, they have lots of opportunity to wear designer clothes. Why are you stealing clothes from a department store? That's odd. The pills are par for the course in the celebrity lifestyle.
At a press conference, Beverly Hills Police Lieutenant Gary Gilman claims Winona had been under surveillance by store security for 30 to 45 minutes before leaving with the stolen goods. To get in front of the story, Winona's lawyer Mark Garagos holds a separate press conference at which he tells a packed room that Winona is completely innocent of the charges. The star, he says, has receipts for the clothes and prescriptions for the drugs.
When he came out and lied, that showed her in a bad light, and people started thinking of her as not only a liar, but a crazy liar because of recent revelations.
So Mark Garagos is like a famous celebrity lawyer. He represents big clients like Chris Brown and Michael Jackson, and any good lawyer is gonna be a master of spinning things toward their client. But if you're a great lawyer, you're gonna be able to spin things and have celebrities as clients, and that's exactly what Mark Garagos is famous for.
Though Garagos pushes to have the case dropped, when the district attorney's office announces the charges filed against Winona, they pull no punches and show no mercy. Felony charges filed against Winona include 1 count each of second-degree commercial burglary, grand theft of personal property, vandalism causing over $400 in damage, and possession of a controlled substance, now revealed to be oxycodone.
This was a girl that was on a major role. She had done some amazing movies. She had done reality bites. She got awards for this. She had won awards for several of her movies. This just did not fare well for her future.
At her arraignment on February 5, 2002, Winona pleads not guilty. If convicted, she faces up to 4 years in prison.
I don't know if she would have been able to avoid jail time if she pled guilty. It all depended on, how the prosecution would want to go forward at that point. So that if they wanted to put her in jail, that would have been part of the plea agreement.
As she awaits her trial, Winona begins her damage control. Step number 1 is hosting the season finale of Saturday Night Live for the first time in her career. Bravely referencing the scandal in her opening monologue, Winona satirizes her arrest with a sketch in which the show's stars fear being robbed while she's on set.
Satire had been successfully used by several other actors who had fallen out of favor, including people like Rob Lowe. So her team probably wanted to show that, yes, she had a sense of humor and she was back in control of her life.
2 weeks later, Winona makes another surprise appearance, this time at the MTV Movie Awards, alongside comedian Adam Sandler. As Winona's fans rally behind her, a somewhat ironic t-shirt bearing the slogan "Free Winona" becomes popular in New York and LA. In June, Winona herself is photographed wearing the t-shirt.
Wearing that t-shirt was probably a bit of a cheeky move, but I think damage control-wise, it was a great move. It showed that she wasn't laying low, she wasn't gonna hide from the story, and that she was gonna own up to it.
During the pretrial, store security guards tell the court they initially mistook Winona for a homeless person and had watched her deliberately take items, stash them in bags and under her clothes, and then leave without paying. Almost as damaging as the accusations of theft are the claims that Winona had been in possession of oxycodone, a powerful painkiller.
Oxycodone is one of the most powerful painkillers out there, and it becomes highly addictive. If you come off the medication, the withdrawal is like a terrible flu, and therefore people tend to stay on the medication, develop tolerance to it, and need more of it, but they're also afraid of the withdrawal symptoms.
The drug charges are dismissed when Garagos proves that, contrary to police claims, Winona did have a prescription for the drugs.
Even though he came out later and told the truth about the drugs, and the charges were dropped on that because she did have a prescription for those, the damage had been done.
The shoplifting charges stick and are sent to trial in October 2002. The prosecution's case hinges on the testimony of security guards. The guards claim they witnessed Winona collecting items throughout the store, including Calvin Klein and Dolce & Gabbana handbags and accessories. Then take them into change rooms, cut off the tags, and stuff the goods into shopping bags. While security camera footage shows Winona shopping and picking up items, it fails to show her actually stealing.
Winona did get a little bit lucky that it didn't show kind of the end point of this crime, but really, this is just one brick in the wall of her prosecution.
The prosecution claimed Winona went into the store with the intent to steal, that she allegedly bought 4 items, but left with another 20 that she didn't pay for.
For her defense, Winona's attorney Mark Garagos makes the case that Winona had bought several items, but was then targeted by unscrupulous security guards who had framed the star in the hopes of selling the story.
You rarely see shoplifting make national headlines, but she's a celebrity, and celebrities are followed to the dry cleaners. They're followed everywhere they go. When her defense claimed that they were targeting her because she was a celebrity, there is some truth to that, because a lot of people know that if they can align themselves with a celebrity and even break a celebrity scandal, you've seen this over and over again, that they get their name in the paper and that makes them a celebrity. And a lot of times they will hope to get that picture or that arrest or whatever, get hit in the face by somebody just to get their name in the paper, and that's a sad part of society.
Though the prosecution contends that Winona had confessed to store security, her lawyer maintains that the star had only done so after being intimidated by the store's large, imposing guards.
The fact of the matter is that she's been treated, in my opinion, anything but like anybody else.
Not only was her entire career on the line, to make matters worse, the trial was a media circus. There were more than 40 journalists in the courtroom every day.
When the prosecution wraps up its case, it's succinct. She came, she stole, she left. End of story.
I think it was a good choice to keep Winona off the stand. First, because it does create a circus-like atmosphere in society, and especially to any jury. We like to see our celebrities perform, and that's what they would have seen. They would not necessarily have had the intuitive reaction of believing her. They would have assumed it was a performance, so you want to keep her off the stand because of that. And also because coming in, I think that the jury was a little against her because she's a celebrity and it's hard for them to relate to her. Putting her up on the stand and proving them right might not be a good idea.
The jury deliberates for 2 days. When they return their verdict, Winona is found guilty of 2 of the 3 charges, theft and vandalism. She's acquitted of the burglary charge, however, as the jury finds there was no evidence she had entered the store with the intent to steal. When the judge pronounces his sentence, Winona escapes jail time. Instead, she's ordered to perform almost 500 hours of community service, pay $3,700 in fines, and $6,355 in restitution to Saks.
Sometimes we see that people shoplift because it's also part of a self-medication. If you go in and take something, just the thrill of getting away with it, and it's usually something useless, something that you normally can buy, something that you probably won't even use. It's almost a plea for help.
Though she's been spared prison, Winona's true challenge is to try to rebuild a career that had already been struggling and now seems irreparably damaged.
Crazy doesn't bode well for women in Hollywood. It's just not the best image for them. So in retrospect, her coming out about her mental issues did her no favors.
The court may have let her off easy, but the real question is, would Hollywood be so forgiving?
Winona Ryder has been found guilty of stealing clothing from a Beverly Hills department store. Now the question remains, can damage control resurrect her career? Having avoided prison time, Winona fulfills the community service aspect of her misdemeanor charges by completing 480 hours of volunteer work at City of Hope, a charitable Southern California hospital.
For status purposes, it's better to be somebody that's committed a misdemeanor rather than a convicted felon. I mean, it doesn't really look good on the resume. And the fact that she did her community service and made amends really does make the judge feel happy. So, you know, again, like, we're in this rehabilitative mode, and if we see our criminals doing good for the community rather than taking from the community, you want to really reward them for that. Keep them out of our jails.
Behind the golden gates of the Hollywood studios, Winona's oldest friends and allies within the business are quick to speak out about their willingness to work with Winona again.
Her publicity team saw that one thing that had worked for others was to have celebrities come out in your favor, almost endorsing you. That adds a lot of power to it because people do look up to celebrity, and this really helped and worked in her favor.
Before getting back in front of the camera, Winona makes it her first priority to get her head in the right place. She leaves Los Angeles and returns to San Francisco, where she had enjoyed some of the happiest years of her childhood.
She couldn't deal with the stress of Hollywood any longer and needed to step away, and it was a positive move. By going to San Francisco, it was a rejuvenation, it was a way to get out of the spotlight, it was a way to begin spontaneous healing.
In 2006, Winona finally makes her return to the silver screen, albeit in typically unconventional fashion. Starring alongside Robert Downey Jr. in Richard Linklater's rotoscoped sci-fi thriller A Scanner Darkly, Winona returns to the type of work she's always most enjoyed.
Every reason. Philip K. Dick, huge fan since high school. Richard, worship, the cast, greatest group of guys. And I mean, I would have pretty much done anything just to be on the set.
This was the kind of film that everyone knew her for. She was back in a very small way, but back nonetheless, and her following was there to help her. They came out for it.
She doesn't have to step back into the glare of Hollywood, taking on these huge roles, huge risks. This is something that can slowly but surely, that's familiar for her, get her back into the Hollywood beat.
In 2007, Winona opens up for the first time about her arrest and the story behind it. In an interview with Vogue magazine, Winona blames a quack doctor who had overprescribed the notoriously addictive painkiller oxycodone following an accident in which she had broken her arm. The drug, she says, left her in a confused state and prone to unpredictable behavior.
Appearing in Vogue was a brilliant move on her part. It's probably the smartest thing she had done in a very long time, because she came out and talked about the drug problems, and everybody knows of actors and personalities that have gotten addicted to oxy. So now we were allowed to like her again and to want to be part of her life again, because there was an explanation that made sense. She wasn't just crazy. There's a lot of hypocrisy involved, but that's just the way it is. We don't want to be around somebody or follow somebody who's damaged. If they've been the victim of something, we can forgive them. If they're just damaged, we shy away.
Starting a new relationship with indie rocker Blake Sennett, Winona spends the next few years appearing in a handful of small, independent films, the type of picture she enjoys most.
The fact that the films were not huge hits didn't matter. What did matter was that her reputation in Hollywood was being built back up again, that she was reliable, and that she was ready to work.
In 2009, a series of smart choices carve out a new path for the star. Taking a small role as Spock's mom in the summer blockbuster Star Trek, Winona gets her most visible screen time in years. In 2010, director Darren Aronofsky cast Winona as an older, bitter ballerina, surpassed by a young ingenue played by Natalie Portman in his Oscar-winning masterpiece, Black Swan.
In a way, the role mirrors her own career as the aging ingenue. And even though she's not in the movie for very long, she knocks it out of the park.
When her next picture, Ron Howard's The Dilemma, starring Channing Tatum and Vince Vaughn, also proves to be a hit, the media now has a new story about Winona. She's back. In 2012, Winona re-teams with an old friend for the first time in 20 years. Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands director Tim Burton hires Winona to perform one of the key voices in his own passion project, the animated hit Frankenweenie. With supporting roles in blockbusters and leading roles in the indie films she's always loved, Winona appears happy to no longer carry the burden of being an icon, the face of a generation. Despite the troubled periods of her life and career, Winona continues to work, but now on her own terms, happier and more in control than ever.